All right, we are live. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me today. This is something I wanted to do for a while because I was really impacted by the small conversation we had just at the workout. Just being around you, you seem like you had a lot of wisdom.
Well, yeah, I've been around a little bit, 57 years, and 28 years of that in the military. So a lot of lessons learned for sure. Yeah.
All right, awesome. So why don't you tell me where it all started? What was your childhood like? Was Vic pissed off, angry, muscular? Were you a professional bodybuilder on the beach? What did you do?
Well, Eddie, first of all, thanks for the opportunity. It's just I love your attitude, I love your energy and what you're all about, and it's great getting to know you. And this opportunity to just share a little bit of my story. You know, everybody's got a story. You know, everybody does, and my story is unique to me. But I'm nobody special. I mean, I grew up in Los Angeles. I wasn't an angry kid. I had a great childhood. You
Awesome.
know, my parents split up when I was 7, but my dad was in my life. I saw him regularly. You know, had a great childhood. Had 2 siblings, a brother and a sister, and then at 17 years old, I decided to join the military. So I left Los Angeles and headed off, joined the U.S. Army, and thought it was going to be a 4-year term, and it turned into a 28-year career.
It's really funny how that can change so rapidly. I thought I was just going to be in there forever, and then my career turned into a 4-year term because of some wild experiences. One of my favorite things about joining the military at first was seeing the diversity with different cultures, I knew that America was a very vast place, but there's so many. It's like a melting pot of cultures from all over the world, and then within that you have different cities. Different slang terminology they use. Mm-hmm. I thought it was pretty much a big culture shock for me to be around people from Detroit, from Compton, from Washington, D.C., from Baltimore, or they call it Baltimore, they don't even say Baltimore. And then from down in Louisiana, is the cool attitude of the Texans who don't bother us, we won't bother you kind of thing. And then people from where I came from, they were all uptight and questioning everything. So what was it like for you at first?
Well, it was kind of like you said. It was, the Army is very diverse. The military is very diverse. People from all walks of life, all different types of backgrounds. You know, I ended up again joining from Los Angeles, and I made friends from people that were from the East Coast, from the Midwest. You know, Hispanics, African Americans, Asians. And when I joined the Army, there was a program. It's called a cohort unit. So basically, everybody that was there stayed together for the first 4 years, basically the entire first term.
Oh, that's good.
And so we're talking about 80 guys that went through boot camp together, went to our first duty station, and spent the first 3 to 4 years together. And we were all 17, 18 years old. And out of those guys, we still have a pretty unique bond. It's just a brotherhood with those cohort brothers, what we call. And probably keep in contact with a good 20 to 30 of them. And we have a reunion, you know, pretty often every few years. And so it was great. I decided to stay on. A handful of us decided to stay on. A few of them did 20 years. The vast majority of them did 1 term and got out. But just that time together, those first 4 years was pretty impactful that we stayed in contact. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was great. You know, the military was a great opportunity for me. I've met a lot of people over the years, you know, and had a chance to be able to impact and be impacted by a lot of people. I had great mentors, so I was very fortunate. I had some great leaders. My very first supervisor, my section chief, kind of put me on the path to success, and yeah, I had excelled and went way farther than what I had ever thought I would. You know, I ran an Army base with about 19,000 people when I retired. Worked at the general officer level. It was humbling, and more importantly, I groomed a lot of people to continue on that path. You know, a lot of great leaders that came out. Yeah,
that is so important too. What you just spoke about, grooming the next generation of leaders. There was a man, I quote him and talk about him pretty often on my podcast, but senior chief now, retired Brontes. Edmundo Brontes was a powerful human being, always looking to help others find their own path, even if it wasn't with the Navy. He'd give great advice. You know, if you don't find your your true calling here, baby boy. You need to take it somewhere where you will. And he just, God, he must have been 5'4", Chilean, about 200 something pounds, just an absolute animal fitness with his lifestyle, with how much he loved every human being that came around him, and the confidence he exuded and how he shaped his sailors to exude that same confidence led me to be able to accomplish tasks easier versus people who didn't want to get on. You kind of get with the plan or you don't go with the plan. You're going to go. You're going to be a resistor, or you're going to be a comparator, or there's so many different electrical components that do different things, and you always want to work with whatever's going on, because if you don't, you might be the one that's blowing up, right? So I was so thankful for leaders like that. Him molding the next generation helped me mold some sailors into, kind of carrying that torch and passing it on to the next generation. If it wasn't for people like that, we'd have a whole lot of people who try too hard to be leaders and end up being poor leaders, instead of people who want to be good listeners and who want to be good followers, because good followers make good leaders.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't just go in there and reinvent the wheel and expect it to turn the same way or sound the same.
No, you're absolutely right. That's a quote that I say: if you want to be a good leader, you got to be a good follower. There's a lot of truth to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, what was your first deployment like? I know that deployments can be a tricky subject for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. There's nothing easy about doing what the nation calls you on, because it's not necessarily why everybody served. A lot of people sign up for different reasons. Some people sign up for college. Some people sign up to meet chicks or guys. Yeah. Other people sign up to see the world, right? For 3 hots and a cot, even. Yeah. I've served with a bunch of people who were homeless before they signed up for the military, and I think that it's all great. But deployment can bring a weird sense of emotions. You find out who you really are in those tough times. A lot of us are forged by the sea, apparently, according to the Navy commercials. Yeah. I would call us forged by fire, because it was 160 near Iraq. So, what was it like for you?
Well, for me, it was a little over 20 years before I deployed. When I first joined the Army, Grenada happened when I was in boot camp, and I thought we were going to go to war. When Desert Storm broke out, I was a drill sergeant during that time, and I was thinking that by the time I came off of drill sergeant duty, I'd be headed off to the war. But that conflict was done very quickly when it was done. And then when OIF took place, my first deployment was in 2004. By that time, I was a battalion sergeant major. I had a battalion with about 500 men and women, and we deployed. And the conflict there was crazy. We lost a number of soldiers in the brigade. Fortunately, I didn't lose any soldiers at deployment. So we were in northern Iraq in Mosul, had a lot of soldiers with Purple Hearts. I had a few close calls, but I made it back complete, and everybody in my unit made it back complete. And so, as a matter of fact, I was going to retire right after that. I thought, man, 22 years in the Army, I got a combat deployment, led everybody there, brought them all back safely. I'm going to call it good,
Yeah.
And that's when my brigade commander says, "Hey, Sergeant Major, what are you doing when we get back?" And I said, "I'm dropping a retirement." He says, "Well, I'd like for you to be the next brigade sergeant major." So I made decisions to take that and went from 500 to 5,000 guys in a striker brigade. And so we were getting ready to go to Germany. Obviously, the conflict was still going on.
Were you stationed at Stuttgart at the time?
No, I was here when my first deployment. I was stationed here in Washington. Here at back then it was called Fort Lewis. Before it was called Joint Base.
They didn't mix with the Air Force.
Yeah. And so when we came back, the unit was reflagged, and then I became the regimental sergeant major for the 2nd Cavalry, which has got a very long, proud history in there. The 2nd Cavalry.
Oh yeah.
So I was the regimental sergeant major, and then we got moved to Germany. We took, I don't know, it was probably like 8,000 plus people, soldiers, families, dogs, cats, everything. And we were stationed in Vilsek in Rose Barracks. And so I thought we were just going to be there and I was going to get to travel and see Europe. And lo and behold, the surge took place. And then they said, "Hey, you guys are going." And so we went back for another deployment. I always say, the motto for our regiment was toujours prêt, which means in French, always ready. So when the surge was taking place, I said, "Hey, these guys are always ready. Let's send them." So sure enough, we left, and so yeah, that was the wild west during the surge in 2007, 2008, and yeah, that was a 15-month deployment. So
Oh yeah.
having been there once before, had some expectations, but this was a little bit different because I had a huge organization, and we were spread out from all the way from Baghdad to Mosul, and during that deployment, I did lose 25 young men.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it can ever be easy to cope with losing a friend. A lot of people don't grasp until they see it in Hollywood, where some great actor or some not so great actor tries to portray the bonds that we share with people. And I look at it as this: for me personally, it's not for everybody, but every single person I deployed with, as soon as they put on the same uniform as me, they became one of my family members.
Yeah.
I spent 365 days with them unless I was at home on leave. And I spent less than 30 days back home a year with the travel from Washington to Virginia, or with mix-ups with the planes and everything, right? Just traveling sucks. But the bonds that I created, if to lose just one of those people, even if I might never see them again, every time I lose somebody close to me, whether it's with a military issue, a back home issue, or sadly sometimes they end their own life, which is a terrible thing that we're all experiencing across the board right now. Army, Navy, God, I hate to say Air Force and the Coast Guard. All jokes aside, even in the Space Force, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's really difficult to lose somebody who wears the same colors you wear, and doesn't care where you're from, doesn't care who you pray to, doesn't care who you love, doesn't care what your mom said to you last night, or what your dad said he was disappointed in you, or why did you leave us, or the guilt that comes with a lot of military members. They just care about you for who you are, and a lot of them are willing to lay down everything just so you can go home to yours.
Yeah.
So much more than themselves. And I've seen it with new fathers giving up their spot to go home in Iraq and Afghanistan deployments. And I've seen it with mothers whose heart breaks every time their son leaves because they don't want to become a Gold Star mom. We have a lot of love for our military members, and when we lose one of our brothers or sisters, it's very, very personal. Those are faces that are like ingrained like a CD.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
So my heart goes out to you for that. It's I know that it can never be easy to deal with something like that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that. I mean, their faces. I have them on my phone. I have the pictures of all the 25 young men that I lost in Iraq, and I talk about these guys often, and I share who they were. So all of these young men, as I show you on my phone, all of these guys that I lost.
Wow.
Now, if you notice, this guy right here, 9 January, that was yesterday.
Yes.
That was 15 years ago yesterday. I lost 6 young men. This is Sergeant First Class Pionk, okay, Sergeant Dozier, Sergeant Gall, Sergeant Sanders, and Specialist Davis, Specialist McBride. All these guys right here, those 6 guys lost their lives 15 years ago yesterday.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. It shows that you really have these people really close to you. Wow. I've seen people talk about people that they care about in a lot of different ways, but that was very interesting, and I really admire that.
Well, we can't forget these guys. Freedom's not free. These guys paid a price, and I carry their pictures on my phone, and I look at them often. I talk about them because freedom's not free.
100%.
Freedom's not free. Yeah.
If it wasn't, I always remind people that every single person that doesn't even the person that's moving boxes in a storage facility that's never even known what it's like to be in the sandbox or to be off the coast of it, or they never heard of F-18 take off, or other than in Top Gun movies.
Yeah.
And they don't understand anything about what's going on outside of where they're at currently, and they're upset that they're there sometimes. A lot of times people are upset about the current environment. If it wasn't for those people, every single one of them, we would be a very, very different place, where you're not allowed to pray to whoever you want. You're not allowed to love whoever you want. You might get thrown off the top of a building for loving who you want to love. And I had a great experience with a lot of sailors. I was deployed with people who used to be on DevGru, who knew people who were in Operation Red Wings, that was an overwhelming experience to talk to somebody who lost their best friend in the operation. It was also beautiful to talk to people who signed up to go IA when Iraq kicked off, and corpsmen who had spent their time patching up Marines and people and being sent on random missions that they weren't even sure they were supposed to be on, and they just showed up and they patched up somebody random, and years later they're getting an email or a letter from them saying, "Thank you for saving my life. I've looked for you for 10 years. I've watched the letter reading happen on my ship while we were deployed. Someone got a letter like that." And so the beautiful interconnection we all have, it transcends time and space, obviously. It also transcends these boundaries that we see in normal society. And I really love that. It's one of my favorite things about the military. And the camaraderie is another thing that I don't think I can ever leave out the camaraderie, because we have these bonds. They're so much more powerful. Like, I have no idea who you used to be in your life. All I know is you wore a uniform, and that means that I can, to a certain extent, trust you with everything. And I can rely on you just like you can rely on me. With a phone call or a text, everything can change. And I just came from one of those calls. And there's nothing more beautiful than that, man. Nothing more beautiful than it.
Yeah. No, you remind me of a time here on Memorial Day. Another young man that I had met, that same thing. He was struggling with alcohol, and he calls me, and he's in a hotel room somewhere, and I was trying to desperately. I drove like a madman to go find him where he was at, and I found him in his hotel room. Alcohol. He had a weapon, and so I called the police. I said, "Hey, there's this veteran in this hotel, and I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm headed there. I know this is the hotel," and police were there. I was there, but I'm glad that we can intervene, because if we can save one life, it makes a difference. I try to impart to veterans that, a lot of people suffer with guilt. Why did I make it back, and why did I lose those guys? We don't know the answer to that. Only God knows that, okay? But like we were saying, life is a gift. And I always say, in order for us to honor the fallen, we should serve the living, you know? So the best way we can honor them is to take our eyes off of us and the guilt, and put it on other people, and go make a difference, go change the world, I often think of that movie, Saving Private Ryan.
Yes.
And you see that last scene in the movie where Private Ryan's as an elderly guy, and he's there at the cemetery in Normandy, standing over the grave of Tom Hanks, and he says, "Man, tell me I lived a good life. Tell me, that I was worthy." People paid a price and sacrifice so that we could be here. We can live the life that's full in the greatest country in the world, and shame on us if we don't take advantage of that.
Yes.
Shame on us if we're just going to, have a pity party and suffer with guilt. So I do my best to tell people, man, you made it back. Let's kick some butt. Let's go make a difference in this world, and that's how we can honor those guys, by taking our eyes off of us and putting it on other people.
100%. This year, I lost a friend. He wasn't in the military, but there's something that happened at his service that completely was just a wake up call for me. I was a guy who drove his family around when they flew in from Philly. I took him to the place. I helped him clean out his apartment. I cleaned up the blood, and it was not hard for me. It was hard for me to do that. Yes, I admit. I might have bit off more than I could chew, but being able to be a part of that and help his family through that tough time was it kind of washed away that pain a little bit. And also at the funeral, she said that I want to end on a happy note, so I'm going to play a happy song. She played "Beautiful Day" by U2, and I was just thinking about the words. Everything's not perfect, but you know what? Let's appreciate the small, beautiful things that we find in life. And beauty and happiness can be found in the darkest of times.
Yeah, absolutely.
The absolute darkest of times. And it kind of I was just thinking about it on the way home. The whole way I was driving from Tacoma all the way up to Linwood, so it's obviously it's like in traffic too, an hour and a half drive, and I was just thinking in dead silence, and I actually caught myself dazing off and thinking about life, and I got honked at a bunch. Whatever, it is what it is. But I was appreciating every single moment that I've had to live, and I've appreciated every beautiful random act of kindness, random act of bravery, where where a homeless vet, I see a homeless vet jump up and stop somebody from stealing from a lady on the street in Seattle in the middle of the night, and then I ask him, hey man, are you okay? Blah blah. Yeah, man, I'm not gonna let that happen. When I was in the military, I'm not gonna let it happen now. Blah blah. Like standing up for the right thing. Every single person who serves in the military is capable of greatness, and also capable of great violence to those who need it. And I think that is where the beauty of service to the world has to come into play, especially after you get out. A lot of people struggle with the separation anxiety, losing the camaraderie, the lack of guidance. I think you can find guidance through continuation of your service. Doesn't have to be enlisted or officer, preferably. Always do enlisted, not officer. But I would definitely say go out and do something to rock the world, remind you your life, make somebody cry, tears of joy and appreciation. And sometimes you got to cry with them. It is what it is. But go find reasons to live.
Yeah, exactly. Here this month we're celebrating, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. And I love the quote that he says, about life's most urgent, persistent question is, what are we doing for others? And again, this is what it's all about. It's about making a difference. It's about helping other people, our fellow man. And when you have an attitude of gratitude, it's hard to be depressed. It's hard to be, worried and have anxieties. But that's you got to be thankful. You got to count your blessings. We made it back for some reason, and others didn't. So again, the way we can honor them is by us doing something great.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so there's so many difficult parts of being in the military. What would you say were your top three? My top three, I think number one would have to be the separation from my family. Yes.
Okay. Seen a lot of different things in combat, but the hardest thing to deal with is being away from your family. Missing your kids' high school years, missing all their activities. My first deployment, I remember my son was a senior in high school. I missed his entire senior year, I was also a brand new dad. I had a 2-year-old, and I missed all the little fun things that you get to see with a 2 and 3-year-old. So that was probably number one. The hardest thing is just being away from my family. You look forward to those phone calls, those Skype meetings that we used to have, or get on a sat phone and be able to have a conversation. But it's time that you'll never get back. And that's why, being in the military and the deployments and the exercises, the time away from your family, it can take a toll. It took a toll in my life. I went through not one divorce but 2 divorces. So yeah, that time away from family, not only during the deployments but even just gone for a month here, gone for a month there. All of those years. Made a difference not being around your kids.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I felt. I was on the receiving end of with my dad, my stepdad leaving. He was my present father figure at the time. So when he left, he told me that I have to step up. I have to be the dad for my sister. And if anything happens to him, that he needs to know that I know he loves me, and I knew that. He wouldn't have left if he didn't love me. Yeah. He would have said, I'm gonna stay because I'm selfish and I'm not gonna honor my word like a man should. Yeah. But he went when 9/11 happened, and the things he came back holding on to, everything changed in him. It wasn't just him having sleep issues. It wasn't just him being sad for some reason sometimes, or me walking in on rooms of him crying, holding pictures of people. It was different times where he was not fully back yet, right? And some people leave and come back almost all the way, and that's great. I'm super excited for them. Some people leave and come back just fine, and more power to them. But some people, they don't necessarily come back mentally in the way that they do physically. And a lot of different military members, military family members, spouses, and sometimes even ourselves, we recognize that. And it's something I've definitely recognized with my stepdad as well. So me and him can kind of talk nowadays, and I'll be like, hey, you kind of check out a lot of times. Maybe you should, I don't know, meet up with your old buddies or talk to some of your old buddies when you're feeling down. or just talk to me because I can find you somebody better than your Air Force buddies. And he loves my jokes, and all he does is make jokes about the Navy. And I make jokes about the Navy too. It's cool. Army Marines are definitely the way to go, in my opinion. But I was proud of what I did.
Yeah,
my contribution. So we talked about that. What are some other difficult things to experience?
Well, obviously the loss of soldiers that I served with. These were men that I had deployed that I was responsible for. I knew leading into that second deployment. After the experiences from the first deployment, the second deployment,
the surge, right?
In the surge, when everything was wild and crazy there, I knew I was going to have casualties. I knew it was going to be very, very difficult, almost impossible to go 15-month deployment without having one loss. So I prepared for that, and a lot of the preparation was in the training and doing everything I could to make sure our soldiers were well trained, well equipped, and well prepared for what they were going to expect. So obviously there's things that you couldn't control, the mortars, the bombings, the roadside bombs, and so some of that happened, and unfortunately, we lost 25 young men in my regiment. And, some of them I knew a little bit more than others. When you have an organization that big, it's hard to have a personal relationship with everybody, with the lower ranks and different. But it's still those guys I was responsible for. Mm-hmm. And I attended every memorial service. I identified some of them, in the morgue and stuff. So that was difficult to see the loss of life for these young men that, I had a young man that his kids went to school with my daughter, and so I just, that's always difficult to think about, that these guys, they won't get a chance to walk their daughter down the aisle and, finish a college degree or start a business or build a home or, any of that. Because like I said, they paid the price.
Yes. So
that's always difficult. And I guess the other thing is just, those were the, I would say, the top two. I mean, if there was anything else, it's just the fact that the military is not tough. There's certain things that you can't control.
Yes.
Politics, different leaders. I had some very good leaders, and then I saw a lot of poor leaders.
Yes.
And I think the difficult thing for me was those poor leaders that it's like, hey, it's time to go, because if you're no longer here for taking care of soldiers and serving, it's time to retire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's an important thing to recognize, to check your surrounding leaders and make sure they're good. One of my favorite things about the YouTube channel Active Self-Protection is where the host John Correa, he talks about different types of fitness. There's physical fitness, financial fitness, mental fitness, and then there's also one we don't think about a lot, emotional fitness. Yeah. Are you right with your God or your family? Is there someone you haven't told you love as of late that you want to, and you're just holding on to some old grudge or judgment? Smooth out those rough edges and figure it out, or cut ties and let go and let God kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I think it's so important to make sure you're right with everything as a first responder, or or just as somebody walking down the street. Yeah. Even, especially in today's day and age, it's important to know that you've done all the things you want to do with your partner. You've done all the things you want to do with your children, and you try to make up for any of the wrongdoings we do. As you're obviously you're your own leader in your life. You have to lead yourself. Everybody does. And a lot of people look to other leaders. You have to ultimately be your leader. You have to tell yourself, I made a mistake here. I have to right my wrong. Or, I was really horrible to my wife today. I'm going to bring her flowers, remind her that they're not just because she's beautiful. They're because she is the flower of my life, right? Yeah. Or man, I really made a mistake. I don't understand what I did wrong. You want to explain it so I can be better for next time. Or just the small things to do to humble the ego, turn it on down, and be receptive of what your family needs. Because in a split second, it can disappear.
Absolutely.
And man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned ego. I always say ego is not your amigo.
No, definitely not.
And yeah, you just never know what's going to happen. It's like you want to live a life without regret. You know, if it's kind of like that song, you know, live like you were dying.
I love that. I have it on my phone right now.
When you listen to that song, you know, you live like you were dying, because you don't know. We are one doctor's appointment away from a bad report. We are one car accident. You know, people don't prepare for the unexpected, but we really should think about those things, not to dwell on them in a morbid way, but to say, okay, if today was my last day, did I live it the way that I want to? Did I forgive people? Did I kiss my wife? Did I talk to my kids? Those kind of things. So those things. Like I said, just knowing the fact that I was blown up in Iraq, and I just know how precious life is. You just don't know. You know, I see car accidents on I-5. I hear things that happen in the news, and so you just never know. So you have to definitely live every day like, hey, I'm going to live it to the fullest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially in today's age where we're also connected. We're connected really quickly. So one text message, or for me, like some of the worst news I've ever had is over email. And so I have big issues checking my email. I try to avoid my email as long as I can. And I just recently identified that with a therapist. They told me, hey, maybe the reason you don't check your email ever is because you found out your dad was dying when you were deployed through email. I'm like, kind of might make some sense. I was pretty on top of it before that. Yeah. And I got a Facebook message from my brother's mother saying that he had died in a DUI incident. He got killed by a drunk driver. And I'm like, man. So I realize how quickly life can change in an instant. And it's like there's a lot of painful lessons with death. And how precious life is definitely one of those lessons that you can use for something positive. Yeah. I try to be a better person because of it. One thing that a lot of people ask in the military, and I want to just put this out there as a disclaimer to the world: don't ever ask somebody these questions. Don't ask, have you ever shot anybody? Don't ask, have you ever lost a friend? These are things that you normally don't ask people, because that's for something to share with you when they're ready. And these aren't just normal people going overseas, and people come back changed because they turn into different people over there for the mission. The mission comes first because it's about the man and the woman next to you. You have to have your buddies back, and they have to have your back, or you might not make it back. That's literally how it works. Sometimes it's us or them, and it's not rude. It's not inhumane. It's combat. Combat has its ups and downs. Some people have it harder than others, and I think that's what makes the parts away from the military, away from war, away from your deployment, away from your division, away from your good and bad leaders. It makes those moments so more precious. I don't know about you, but I found a great appreciation for every moment outside of my life. When I'm done with work, I'm like, yes, man, I get to go breathe and see people, and like me and my wife's been sick for 2 days. I've been sleeping away from her. I haven't talked to her very much. I've been busy out and about handling my business, and missing her is unhealthy for me. Yeah, I would say I appreciate life so much more because of the time I spent away from my family. Yeah. Have you had a similar experience like that?
Yeah, the key is you have to learn from every experience. You have to learn. Life is full of lessons, and sometimes people don't capture those lessons after something happens, even in a death, even after a divorce. Okay, what was the lesson there? So every single day, it's just about learning and growing. And so I love a book that I've read. It's called Mindset, and really, it's so important to have the right mindset. It's either the fixed mindset, where you're fixed, you don't want to grow, you're set, you're set in your ways, or what we call the growth mindset. And the growth mindset is always learning. What did I learn out of this lesson? What did I learn out of this experience? So yeah, I've had a lot of those. I mean, I lost my parents. My mom was paralyzed at 34 years old, never walked after that. I lost my dad at 56. So yeah, there are a lot of lessons in there, and I think two of the most valuable lessons are one, that life is too short, okay, and many people don't realize that, especially the young people. They think, I'm going to live forever.
You think that until your knees start to hurt.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other lesson is that life's not fair. Life's not fair. There's a lot of things that we don't expect to happen, but they do. And we just have to learn something from that.
100%. We definitely do. And I think that every lesson you learn is another tool in your toolkit for how you can fix yourself and other people around you. We're all not perfect. There's so many people that are lost in the sauce. There's a movie called MVP, and it came out on Veterans Day this year. It's about the transition out of the military and how other people find that camaraderie and fitness and working up a sweat, forcing dopamine into the mind, and just talking about how your week was, highs and lows or whatever. If somebody needs help, we all try to help each other and stuff like that. I really found so much value in their realistic approach to what suicidal ideations look like, to what triumph over your tribulations can look like, what instead of being a victim, how to be a victor of your situation. And it does come down to mindset ultimately. I really loved you talking about books, because there's so many beautiful artists out there that portray different things, and I love it when they narrate their own. I think Tim Kennedy, Scars and Stripes, has been the most influential book I've ever listened. Next to Harry Potter, of course, because I gotta give a shout to them because she had it figured out. It's a timeless book series. But in that book with Tim Kennedy, he narrates it himself. He writes it himself. He writes it from the perspective of him at that time. So it's all in like the first person, in-depth, immersive book of what it's like to be a great person, what it's like to be an asshole, what it's like to be a frustrated man, what it's like to be someone feeling guilt, what it's like to be somebody who is powerful, what it's like to be someone who feels weak when they're not. No one's weak. Yeah. Everyone has great strength inside of them. But listening to that, it would really put in perspective how amazing life is and how blessed we are to have this opportunity. There are people who, with the Afghanistan withdrawal, there were people floating their children across crowds like beach balls and tossing them over Constantine wire to U.S. soldiers in hopes that they won't have to go through what they're about to go through with the Taliban and what they've experienced in the past with them. And to be an American and not have to face that, it's a thankless, endlessly thankful feeling I feel all the time. Yeah. What are some of your favorite novels and some lessons you learned from them?
Well, I love to read. I've got a lot of books. I like history, but some of the most impactful books that have shaped my life. The first one's the Bible. Okay, yes. A lot of stuff. I've learned a lot of stuff from that book. The magic of thinking big, the compound effect, Think and Grow Rich, The Go-Giver, Who Moved My Cheese. And there's just a lot of books that help you become better. Personal development is absolutely an important part. I always say if you want to earn more, you got to learn more.
I love it.
So books are a big part of it, and so I've got a ton of different books. I don't read any fiction. A lot of it is self-help, relationships, finance, business, communications, marriage, parenting. So these are things that, and a lot of these books I've recommended to others that have made a huge difference. They're like, man, that book. I was talking to a veteran that got out, and I recommended a book to him, and he said that book landed me a job with Starbucks. He was looking. He went and did the interview, and he said if I wouldn't have read that book, I wouldn't have gotten that job. So just things like that. Books are powerful. Books are powerful. So
absolutely. There's so much knowledge. I always say this. There's a lot of people way smarter than me out there who've got it all figured out. I'm just lost in the sauce like everyone else.
Yeah. Well, I have a PhD, public high school diploma. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Right there with you.
That's it.
So we talked a little bit about your military experience. So you spent how many years in the military, correct?
28.
28 total. That's a lot more than most. Right. A lot of people just spend a quarter of that, right? I think it's tremendous that we have people who are willing to stay after, not just because they want to, but sometimes there's a higher calling. To serve others, to help other sailors, soldiers, Marines, coasties, and airmen and Space Force cadets or whatever, right? Figure it all out, because nobody has all the answers. But every now and then there's that one person who has enough years of experience doing things the right way, who can share that and mold others. And then every now and then you'll find yourself driving in a leadership role, and you'll see another version of you show up and say, "Oh no, I got it from here," without even saying it. And then you can kind of hands off the wheel, like driving a Tesla, hands off the wheel and just let it kind of do its thing.
Yeah.
Have you had those experiences as you were transitioning out?
Yes, well, I had 28 years in the Army, and I could have done as many as 40 years. Once you work at the general officer level, they want to keep you. And so when I brought my retirement, everybody thought I was crazy. Or like even the sergeant major's branch called me, and a friend of mine says, "Hey, your retirement packet's on my desk. Are you sure you're gonna retire?" I said, "Dude, you're freaking young. You still got a long way." All my old bosses, generals, told me not to retire, but my circumstances changed, and the three things that impacted me that made my decision: one was going through a divorce, two was getting blown up, and the third one was my mom passing, dying of cancer. So those three things kind of like back-to-back events that I said, it's time for me to go. It's time for me to go do something else. And so again, I just learned from other people and learned from gleaned from their experiences, and I watch people when they transition. And veterans, veterans are what I call a multi-million dollar creation. The experiences, the training, the leadership that we've had, the leadership that we've learned. I mean, veterans. If you really prepare yourself and if you really market yourself, you can do some great things afterwards. Unfortunately, I see a lot of veterans that don't prepare to transition from the military, and they drove a truck in the Army, so they'll drive a truck as a civilian. They were a cook, in the military, so now they're just going to be a cook somewhere outside in the private sector. But I watch people transition, and I've seen veterans do one of three things. The very first thing they'll do is they'll go to some job fair. They'll go to a resume workshop, and they'll go find a job. Number two is they will go back to school. They use their GI Bill. They'll get their degree, put that on their resume. Then they'll go find a job. But the third thing that I've watched some veterans do is they'll go into business. My experience is I watched those three things happen. The people that I saw go into business for themselves, those are the ones that caught my attention. Those are the ones I look at these guys, because I'd run into them. After some of my peers had retired, they went on, and I'd see them at conferences and seminars at different military bases, and now they're in business suits. They're calling their own shots. They have their own businesses, their own companies, and so that's what attracted me. I mean, after reaching the level that I was at, and basically calling the shots, being able to walk into my office at 10 o'clock in the morning and nobody questioned me, the last thing I wanted to do is to get out and get a job and being told what to do. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I'm a grown man.
So many people, they get out and they say, "Oh, I know what I want to do. I want to get told what to do. I don't like these guys because they're in uniform or something." That's what they think. They don't even think about that. The uniform comes off, does it mean you're not getting told what to do still?
Yeah. So yeah, you're told what to do. You're told what to wear, where to be. And so I just didn't want that dictated on me. So the only way that was going to happen is to go into business for myself. I like staying fit, so I thought about buying a gym. I'm not the most creative guy, so I just thought, let me buy a franchise. I can buy Subway, and so explored a lot of different things. But ultimately, business was the way that I went, and it's given me the life that I have today. I'm blessed to be able to have the opportunities that I've had over these last 12 years.
That's excellent. I'm so happy for you, man. Yeah. I think it's important to not just understand and recognize your skills, but monetize them if you can, and find ways to live without financial burdens, because that's when you can do your greatest work. When you're not worried about the bills. Stress is an absolute killer for people.
Yes.
Stress can cripple you, can put you in the hospital. It can add to fear, which induces more stress, which kills your dopamine levels, which can put you in some pretty bad mental spots too. Mm-hmm. And a lot of vets get out in their first 90 days is when they're very, very they're extremely highly likely to experience a mental health episode or mental health crisis, depending on how people consider it. Yeah. And it can be tough to for me personally to recognize those numbers. It is difficult because it's happened to me. I've had extreme lows where I didn't think I had any purpose. I went from being in charge of 250 people, knowing exactly how to do my job, teaching people, experiencing life with others, helping people get home when I couldn't get home myself. When my family was dying, I was making sure they got home. Talking to other people, hey, let's all chip in $20. We can buy this person a plane ticket right now. Yeah. Let's just do it. Why not? Why not? Take a second. I want you to all do this. If you don't want to do it, fine, but I'm going to do it. And if you want to follow me, follow me. Everybody puts in money. This person flies home to say goodbye to their mom. That is those moments like that where we go outside of the social norm is what was so special to me. And now, wiping down tables for minimum wage plus tips. Yeah. Working 70-hour weeks just to pay the bills, in debt, confused. Where's my purpose? Yeah. A lot of people don't know the purpose. And I found mine just kind of recently, just trying to improve myself, listening to other people's experiences and helping share other veteran voices. And of course, the civilians as well, because everybody experiences things. It's not just people who put on a uniform, but I'm able to identify really easily with anybody who's ever worn a uniform. I can usually bring out a side of them that they might not be comfortable sharing with somebody who doesn't know what it's like to give up everything for an idea that might not have been what they thought it was. Yeah. So I can definitely resonate. Yeah,
transitioning is a leap of faith. It is a leap of faith because, when you're in the military, you've got a paycheck coming in, you got a place to sleep, you got meals coming in, you got benefits, and you're almost living in a bubble. So when you leave the military, you lose all that. And so it can be very difficult. Not only that, sometimes we're used to our titles and our positions. And I've seen a lot of people that struggle with that. They were a chief master sergeant or a sergeant major or a colonel, and then now they're like, Mr. Smith, office manager, So some people struggle with that, but it is a leap of faith. And I think the more that you prepare yourself for that transition, the better off you're going to be. The fault is a lot of people don't prepare for that transition. They're just like, and a lot of them, because they don't prepare, their only option is to re-enlist and to stay in, which may mean more deployments, more time away from family, more stress. You look at the cost of inflation and where it's at, and you compare that to the pay raise that a service member gets on an annual basis. We're losing money. We're not even keeping up with the rate of inflation
at all.
So those kind of things add to stress. So yeah, it's important to really prepare for that transition.
Yes, I definitely agree. What do you enjoy doing that has to do with veteran outreach? Because I know you spoke with me previously at the gym at Rebel Fitness in Renton about the VFW. So I've heard the great things about the VFW. I've heard that nobody's been fighting for veterans longer than the VFW, no organization. And I completely find that to be true as well. What is your favorite experience about the VFW? What does it mean to you? And what do you think their role is in the future?
Well, the VFW, wow, I'm just going to pull out some facts. I carry a little fact sheet on my phone.
Awesome.
But the VFW is the nation's oldest major war veterans organization, okay? They've got an impeccable record. I mean, if you look at the VA loan, as a veteran, one of the benefits that we have is our VA loan to buy a home.
Yes.
Well, that's because of the VFW, because the VFW fought for veterans to have that. The GI Bill, same thing. People want to join the military to get educational benefits. That exists because of the VFW. So they continue to lobby for veterans, for benefits, for pay raises, and so they have a very, very important role. 2,000 plus VA accredited representatives across the country helping veterans. 12.5 million, the value of financial assistance awarded. I mean, think about this, to families since 2004. It just on and on. There's so many facts about the VA, but VA by the numbers, 1.5 million VFW members, 5,000, almost 6,000 posts worldwide. And again, I had always thought about joining the VA. I didn't join until a couple of years ago, but really got educated because these are things that I didn't know. I was a veteran. I didn't really realize. I thought it was just a bunch of vets getting together, having a meeting. But no, it's a lot more than that. Today I talked with one of the officers in my post, and we're doing veterans outreach. We're connecting. We're doing fundraisings, connecting with units, continuing to grow. So we're powerful in our numbers. But the VA cuts through a lot of red tape. They improve the life of veterans. They help struggling military families. We honor the fallen. We got the VFW does ceremonies out here at the National Cemetery for veterans. We inspire patriotism. We've got scholarship programs. This past Veterans Day, I participated in the Veterans Day Parade, which is the largest Veterans Day Parade here in Auburn, the largest Veterans Day Parade this side of the Mississippi. So, and our post has a huge role with that. So anyways, the VFW is a great organization, and I just encourage veterans, both active and retired, who served in a combat zone to really check that out and, become a member. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, I definitely can agree. I think I'm going to be joining the V soon. What is one thing that you would say to somebody when they ask, why is camaraderie the word used so often about what veterans need when they get out? Because veterans need a lot of things, right? Because they're human beings too. All right. A lot of times we think about the word military vet. We think that guy wearing fatigues on the side of in a tent. And I hope to be able to work with Nine Line and different organizations to help change that in the future. I've been working with them already. What is the one thing we can say to keep vets off the street, to keep vets away from overindulging in alcohol, to keep vets, who feel lost at sea without guidance, right? What do we tell the people like that?
Well, you mentioned the word camaraderie. That's one of the things about the VFW. They're all veterans. We all have a story. We all have some things in common. We all served in combat. We all wore the uniform. And so, and there's all branches there. So we all kind of joke around, give each other a hard time about, the different branches. But we get together a couple times a month. Really we have one monthly meeting, but there's other events that we do, different events and fundraisers and community activities. But yeah, that camaraderie is important. I meet people all the time. I meet veterans and that aren't part of the VFW, and I educate them a little bit about it, and like, wow, yeah, I wanna go check it out. So when you get around other people that have similar experiences who wore the uniform, it's just a game changer. Like you said, most people don't understand the price and what we've done and what we've experienced. But at the VFW, I mean, I'm a OIF Afghanistan vet, but I talk to Vietnam vets and I hear their stories, and I draw strength from that and a lot of encouragement. And it's just great to surround yourself with people who have similar experiences. And I think that would make a big difference if more veterans participated in that. And I think it would do a lot for them in many ways.
Excellent. Because I know that for me, specifically, and friends that I've had who have served in the military across the branches, you usually have only a couple of options. You work for somebody, you go contracting, or you re-enlist. Because working for somebody can also lead to not having the life you want, or overindulging in alcohol and dealing with your problems through alcohol or drugs or whatever. So I know that there's so many ways to monetize and improve and build upon the foundation that we find a lot of times in the military. A lot of times you don't join the military to go to school, or you join the military to go to school or to find travel and to find love of your life, whatever, and then you end up finding something else. It's yourself. I was able to find myself in the military, understand that what I wanted is not going to be something that average people want. I want to help people. I want to be a good father, and I want to be a good husband. And whatever means it takes to get there, I'm willing to do it. And I think that's mine. That's what I want to do. It might not align with what other people want. And one of the main helping factors that I've realized through my veteran outreach, through talking to people, through listening to other people's experiences, their stories, or hardships, is that we all have something great to provide to the table. And once we tap into what that skill, or not, I wouldn't say skill, with that talent that we naturally have, we're able to take it and find the skills that build that talent and use it for a greater purpose. I love when I hear about somebody kind of stepping into their light and finding their path, because it's hard to find your path. For a lot of our warriors, a lot of people can be great trigger pullers, but a lot of people But those same people can struggle with basic day-to-day things until they unite with other people. Like, I'm super dyslexic, so you won't see me doing too much crazy housework involving woodworking, measuring, or things like that. I don't know let me work on elevators, but but I'm able to find friends who do that and who are really good at that, and together we can create this idea and have it come to fruition. And that's just camaraderie in itself, working together as a team.
Yeah. What
is one thing you would say to somebody who approached you and say, "Hey, I'm going through a tough time. I don't know what to do. How do I un-F my life?" I've deployed this many times. I had no issues, and now everything's starting to bubble up. So mad I can't sleep. I'm really struggling to I can't even get along with my wife. My kids are acting up, and I'm pissed off all the time. What do I do?
Yeah. Well, one of the questions I like to ask people, and when I talk to veterans, I use this type of language. I said, "What's your mission? What's your mission?" A lot of people don't realize their strengths or their purpose. Why are we here? Why did I make it back? Why did I make it back, and what am I supposed to do? What's my purpose? So I think if people can define that, and you mentioned talking about finding yourself, and I hear that often. Oh, I got to find myself. I got to figure out who I am. And so my guidance, my encouragement is don't try to find out who you are. Create yourself. You create who you want to be. And it goes right back to that personal development. It's the question we've been asked our entire lives since we were little kids is, what do you want to do? Or what do you want to be? And that's the same question we're asked when we're getting ready to transition from the military. Well, what are you going to do now? Or what do you want to be now? I was an Army Ranger, I was a sailor, I was an airman, and now I want to be a police officer, now I want to be a teacher, now I want to be a plumber. The question, the better question is, how do you want to live? And then if you can figure that out, design your life. Don't live your life by default, live it by design. Create who you want to be. God made us for greatness, and so we can choose to do whatever we want to do. We can become whoever we want to become, and we shouldn't allow other people's opinions or other people's diagnosis of us hold us back. So I do everything I can to help encourage people to figure that out. How do you want to live? What's your purpose? What's your mission? And then once you figure that out, okay, my mission is to go help people. I hear that often. Man, I want to help people. How are you going to help people? And then figuring that out, coming up with a game plan, coming up with a framework or strategy on how you're going to do that. Yeah.
Amen, brother. I hate to quote something like this, but it's one thing that stood out to me so much. When I was in the gym one time, listening to motivational gym stuff, a Christian gym motivational video came on, and it ended up, it's like the Lion of Judah is a YouTube channel, and the pastor ended up saying, with God, nothing is impossible to you. Sorry, I messed up the quote. But it was so perfect. It was like the end of the song, and he was telling you, ask God for things that are so insane, so amazingly powerful, that only He can do it. Make him slide forward in the heavens on His throne. Look down. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? He's ask him to solve all your problems, and then put in the other part is to put in the work.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And growing up in the church, having faith only gets you so far. You have to put action behind that faith.
Yeah.
Faith and conviction. Conviction in your faith is so important.
Yeah. Faith without works is dead.
Yes.
You got to put the work into it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love so many lessons that the Bible has taught me throughout my life. And wow, is it crazy to see people not just surviving but thriving post their military service because they identify not just with the Bible or not just with Christianity, but with the idea of helping others and doing it every day. And as long as you accomplish your 1% goal for the day, hopefully you can do. I always tell people, shoot for 2% of your 1% goal, and then you're gonna at least you can get that 1% no matter what. I promise.
Yeah.
But seeing people succeed is something I'm so passionate about. I've always been excited, and I've been excited to sit down with you for a while, because just walking around you, you're one of the people who have this certain aura about them. They've done things in life. They've experienced true things, that have taught them lessons of pain, of how important honesty is, that knowing how to speak your truth in an articulate way that other people can understand. And I can tell that people can put you on the spot in any room, just ask you some questions, and they're going to gain something every conversation, no matter what it is. So I really do appreciate having you on and your time. I love your home. I love your dogs. And I loved meeting your lovely wife, of course. Thank you so much for taking this time to share a little bit of your wisdom with the world. And I look forward to doing it again in the future on with some other stuff as well, man. So thank you so much for everything, and I appreciate your perspective. If there was one, I always forget to do this, and it's something I'm really trying to improve on. If I were to ask you, what does service and sacrifice mean to you, what would your answer be?
Well, I think it goes to taking our eyes off of us and putting it on other people.
I absolutely love it. Short, sweet, and I think it perfectly captures how a lot of us look at it. You know, the service is us. The sacrifice, our family usually ended up doing that. And we can sacrifice a little bit of the time with our family so others may live, you know, if we're talking about search and rescue, or Rangers lead the way. But you know what? Those Rangers are also going that way away from their families. You know, the sacrifice is the other side that's behind us, right? And so I think there's so many soldiers and airmen and coasties and airmen. Okay, but everybody can identify with some of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This I had fun doing this, and I hope that this can add value to somebody. That's what it's all about. It's about just adding value to people. And if my experiences, if my hindsight can be somebody's foresight, then great.
That's true leadership. All right, thanks y'all for listening to another episode of the Demon Podcast. As always, I'm your host, and today we got to sit down with somebody who is completely 110% focused on self-betterment for the future, and his leadership just exudes confidence in every single way, and I'm so thankful that he took the time to come on today. As always, make sure to check the link in the description. If you have any questions, please come over to our Facebook page and tell us what you thought. Do you think I sucked today? It is what it is. Gotta come and let me know. I really do appreciate all the feedback we've gotten so far. Please stay tuned for more service sacrifice, more domestic violence awareness, more active shooter prevention work, and we're going to be teaming up with some law enforcement officials in the future to talk about how we can better improve the safety of our schools and how to work together as a community to improve public safety. Thank you so much for your time, and bye-bye.